our token engineering team needs to connect to, and we literally have no real process. So with this whole ecosystem value flows that we started with the book and my work with Dada, Invisible Economy, and with Boson Protocol now, it really seems it is needed and it is helpful. But again, it's a process refinement that we are creating and refining while everyone is building, right? So that's the typical case. And then we still have, the people who build in, they don't just build or test in prod, they build in prod, meaning they just deploy and see what happens. And to be honest, when you are doing this generic token protocols, especially the financial games, it's what you can do. Like you can do simulations, but they're not going to tell you more or better insights than, or they're not going to prevent you from those typical mistakes that or errors or bugs that will come out, and so on. So, anyways, that's that with respect to ethical engineering for today. I just want to maybe wrap up with you guys and also ask with respect to the questions that we had from last time. And I'd like to show some questions that shall lead us to those areas where the engineers actually try to figure out their ethos and answer, and what type of questions we can ask so that they can answer as truly as possible. And then basically, maybe before that, just really also get from your sides with respect to community proposals, etc. What questions can we ask that also makes them think about, okay, the things that I'm currently working with, I'm not the only one who asked those questions. Can I make this a project proposal and then share the results with everyone, but also help everyone's input or support and so on. So that type of questions I was hearing that you had found or encountered or would like to pose, right, Livy? Olivia, sorry. Yeah, maybe we can, I'll put up the, 1 second, I'll put up our proposal. Maybe we can recapture a little bit from last time and add some more with respect to more concrete questions. And at the end, I'll show some more of those philosophical questions. This is what they are. Yeah, and then let's see. Okay.
Yeah, I think these discussions have been very present for us, especially when discussing the narrative of the TEC. And yesterday I think we got to a consensus that the punchline is going to be advancing token engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's still a lot of questions about what is token engineering and how can we, when someone asks about what is token engineering, how can we answer this question in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking a lot about how we don't talk so much about economies, but that from my understanding, token engineering is this discipline that is making economies, making new economies based on so many of this of the disciplines of the flower, right? Trying to make disciplines that come from an ethical place, understanding as a social science, and yeah.
So in your experience now, also also with tech, so I realized also finally taking some time and processing and also looking through what mostly the working groups were active till now have accomplished with the community that was active. A, this is really amazing. And B, I realized that it really connected to those rather also social sciences, or this typical political science, governance. That's where basically, especially also the common stack network is super strong in, etc. That was my a little enlightenment, basically, that we actually through this process also really brought together more disciplines. Before that, I think we were really just super techy and super engineering heavy, focusing on these, AI control, what tools we need, and so on. And that was important. Now we have these tools, but then, like, why are we using them? For what purpose? Are we inclusive in our making economies and so on? So I think so from your experience, like those people, also governance, law, legal backgrounds, if you have encountered, we know, and we have political scientists, right? They do feel their part, they are token engineers, or would you say they feel like still this disconnect of token engineers are doing the engineering heavy stuff and we do something else? Do you have a sense of it, Livia? Just out
Yeah,
of curiosity.
I actually talked about this with Griff the other day about like how what makes someone what gives the agency to someone to call themselves a token engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's I think now this membrane is getting like thinner. I
Hmm.
think in the beginning of the working groups there was a heavier division between like token engineers out there and then what we're doing here.
Hmm.
Um, but I think this is a great discussion that we don't have enough.
What do you think? What was important? Because I think, as said, I think it improved a lot. And how can we actually also disseminate, or at the very least talk about, or with questions, bring that awareness through those questions we are going to basically spread in the.
Yeah, I'm curious if one person can be a token engineer or
Yeah,
if it's always or if you always need a team. Like,
I
can you?
think
Yeah.
I think we have those polymaths, but that's what it is, right? It's literally you have this math understanding, that's your main language, but then you have, I, for whatever reasons, have gone through all of that and actually have gone deeper than just look into how all of that might connect on a high level. I mean, what I've done the past year is really I peered into everything, and every time my brain exploded and I felt like, starting from zero, understanding nothing, and so on. At the same time, so let's say, yeah, we have these polymaths, but even they don't cover the entire. Typically, it's the split, right? Engineering heavy, tech heavy side versus the social sciences side. And then we have those interconnections. And I think, let's say, the best is that token engineering teams make that flower come to life. And they have a process and they have a common language, which is currently with the help of everyone appearing, right? Would
Mhm.
you? I'm kind of already quest interviewing you, Livia. I hope it's okay. But these are this type of questions basically, because you had also a lot of insights into all of the working groups, how did you experience that, that language? Like, does it always emerge in the different fields where those token engineers are active? Or do we have a chance, like also for Common Stack, this cultural builds, these patterns that you're creating? How much translation do you think, or is translation part of this becoming a token engineering team, or a cohesive or effective token engineering team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the working groups emerged from okay, so I was thinking the other day, what is the difference between what we are doing and like a grant giving process?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think grants, the way we know them today, they are given from a centralized entity.
Yeah.
So the organization of like giving the grants is somehow contained, and there are a lot of people that know what they're doing to make that happen, and that process happens like again and again. But
Mm-hmm.
then when you want to have a decentralized grant giving, you need that's when the governance comes in, because to be self-managing and to be decentralized, you need people to like
Yeah.
be organized, and then the governance itself, the challenges of the governance bring all the necessities of like multiple disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So um, conflict, conflict resolution, and cultural agreements, communications,
Yeah.
and transparency, mutual accountability, like all of the things that start to come as a necessity,
Mm-hmm.
is to build this very strong like governance body.
Yeah.
But then I start to think, what is the difference between a governance body and an economy? Because when you're organizing yourself within others, you need some types of tools to make transactions, to like the very organizational,
Mm.
uh, to be organized, you need to be exchanging things, and they can be
Yeah.
material and immaterial.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like it happens that this is the token engineering commons, but uh, for other commons, maybe we would also need this similar body of organization to allow
Yeah.
the governance to happen. And then this would build other economies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a meta state that we're building this
Yeah.
economy for the token engineering
Yeah.
community that will be building other economies.
Yeah. And so that was something, again, of course, it literally emerged, right? I mean, it was kind of roughly planned, but literally what emerged in Token Engineering Commons, I've also seen in Dada, not that structured, because it's always like, I think that's why I resonate so much with them. It's like, okay, if this has been done before, you know, shouldn't we question it radically? So that's that. But even through all of that radical questioning, uh, there is really a similar pattern, like this deliberation in working groups was more about sense making, really, really free, but still the same questions emerged, right? Like, how are we going to implement the infrastructure that needs to be implemented? those decisions of reuse, like this typical technical questions like Griff had taken on, right? And then soft gov that you have taken on, decision making, governance, decision making, and we do make decisions all the time. You know, every community might have their own style, or discover it, or they copy something from like this MetaGov. Or any repositories. They say, hey, democracy is this and this is how it rolls, or democracy is the other thing. Or you can say, hey, no, we're going to reinvent something else, like the IETF did with the humming and rough consensus and running code, and we reject King's and so on. So, but that is also happening, like, or even in more streamlined projects that maybe also have, you know, corporates or investors in their back. They are still, everyone is aware now that decentralization is a possibility, and actually why we're all in this. At the same time, we're at the stage where, you know, the best token networks and communities have had their problems with that, right? Because decision making also means there will be that problem, that when you start small, everyone is in the same boat, sharing the same passion, same ideas, saying yes to the same things and no to the same things. But when that thing grows, or basically you have a token and it's out there, right, and anyone can participate, because that's what we mean with this far end of the decentralization of token economies that shall reach that point, or be bootstrapped like that, right? Any worldviews will come in and clash. And the one thing about basically figuring out that there has been a clash or a conflict, number one, oftentimes that's not even, doesn't surface soon enough, right? And then secondly, what is this process one can take without it being too automated or too clean cut? We're also not being, you know, everyone needs to sit, hold their hands, which is not possible anyways, and then you know, find their way to each other again. So but that seems to be a topic that is also, I think people don't, and groups and even startups don't think of it soon enough. And then comes in community anyways. And I think, Livia, so I really believe that one fundamental value add of Token Engineering Commons already is this experience with the working groups. Because if a token engineer knows, or a token engineering community team forms within any type of organization that says we're going to decentralize now or in 10 years, these are the topics that will emerge and they need to take care of. So that's why I was super excited on Monday to actually say, hey, if we can make these things really accessible, usable, and as a token engineer, you go into a project and they expect from you, you know, to be able to deal with all of that. The first thing you say, okay, look, this is the base layer we need, so I don't have to, you know, firefight. That's kind of already something we could put out there. So I'd be super happy to somehow help with that. And then I think we could have questions to see whether you know, practicing token engineers out there feel the pain if they don't have such bases, right? I mean, again, I keep talking about Andre because he's this perfect example, or also outspoken person who just develops in live token networks. It's just a financial layer, so whatever gets burned is like people's tokens, and everyone is kind of in it with a consent. So that's fine. But for example, if you would ask those practitioners, like, what would they say about community, about how communication works in their networks, whether they do have conflict management or not, I think we should have a question part like this about their environment.
Yeah,
And that's,
absolutely. There's a
yeah.
few parts of what you said, for example, of having a structure, a very defined structure for decision making. I think it's also important to understand that, like you said, we are making decisions all the time, and to not undermine that, and to
Mhm.
really understand that we don't need to vote to make decisions, that
Yeah,
like voting only addresses a few types of decisions that need to be made that way. But when we are in a call in all of those working groups, we're making decisions all the time.
yeah.
And I think that's the
Mhm.
beauty of it, and that's why it works, because people understand they have that space,
Mhm.
that they have the agency, that they are being heard by others, and there's like a collective sense making happening.
Yeah.
So I think more and more, even when scaling, and we're gonna see if all of this works when the token actually comes, right? Like
Yeah.
when it scales and when it has something of value, when people come from
Mhm.
uh, different backgrounds,
Yeah.
continuing to have the spaces where we can like face to face make decisions, I think is
Mhm.
like super key.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, okay, basically, um, then, okay, basically, I would put this together, but then also ask literally of you, or maybe also from the community stewards, to put together questions, also from their inside, maybe that would help others who are currently, working in token networks, that we find out from these questions, whether they are entirely free floating, or whether they have already these structures, whether they feel it's helping their work to actually focus on making ethical engineering design decisions, or whether this is far off. It sounds like a virtual world what we are talking about here. So that type of practitioner versus what we have been practicing here in tech, getting the spectrum, of that would will be super interesting. And also maybe some hopefully would answer a bit more about maybe some examples of problems they have encountered where they had to make decisions, or trade-offs, where they knew, I'm just developing this and deploy this way because it was the best I could, or because this is what I was asked to do, and I had no say. So this type of questions I'd like to get out there, and to see, like, I know it's a luxury, and I know that not many token engineers who actively work out there have this type of luxury to think about ethical engineering, but that's something we need to do. So that part, last time we gathered some questions also with input of Sparrow, a lot actually. Some questions with respect to, you know, their motivations, etc. Then we have this part about their environment and how far it is from the best possible version, which I believe really the Token Engineering Commons practiced and is practicing. It's ever evolving. And I can say that, you know, the project that I've seen can definitely benefit from this experience as well. So with the questions, we can make them aware. And then the whole philosophical or ethical engineering questions, let me try and share those, and then you will understand my. So working with the polymath, it's always a pain and a pleasure.
I think you also made a really good point that I mean, it's a privilege for people to have access sometimes to space to develop ethical token engineering. So maybe it would be interesting to hear from the people that don't have this space. What are
Yeah.
the challenges? Like how in a very crazy environment we could feed some of these practices
Mm-hmm.
and share knowledge too from like what people in very like mathematical environments are doing and what types of economies they are creating, because
Sure.
maybe soon we'll have like some data from this too, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people that have a certain type of process created this token mechanism, and people that had this certain type of process created another, and
Mm.
how they play out.
Yeah, yeah. And I have a hypothesis, but just a hunch, because that came up a couple of times as well. So if you think of that as the, you know, the flower that is, you know, engineering and more social sciences part, I think the whole DAO and DAO tools and so on have been really provided from the social science background people. You know, when I think of DAO Stack, Felipe, you guys, and so on, and the more okay, this is math. Let's either put it in smart contracts directly or in a model that comes more from the programmers or the tech side, and could be interesting. Like, and I believe really if you when we manage to match that, like with how it worked out or is working out now with tech, and that the people also see. I think we need to make that more accessible, nonetheless. Um, yeah, when the people see that, basically, then they can come in and, you know, to scratch their own itch to help us build those tools, right, or these information processes, or test out alternatives. Like we said, we had all of these tools. Praise giving being this community, really this relationship building thing, but at the same time super heavy on the person. You know, don't forget the people to dish praise and then dish praise and type it in the right way and so on and so forth, versus the source creds type with, you know, configure weights. This is the action space, and that's what gets counted. And for example, I can tell like the artists in Dada, they're like, none of it. It's got to be totally different. So, but this is the space that we are in. And I think if we get people who, you know, who need those tools, who are building those and who are using those, if we get them excited about our goal to really make those connect, to really make it super easy to build those relationships, even if we're far apart, remote, globally distributed, and at the same time be it as automatable as possible so that people actually can focus on their relations and their creative spaces and don't have to fill out what could be uncovered algorithmically. So this is our one of those how do you call it? One of those North Stars. So okay, and basically I will just show this. This has been super heavy, but you know, philosophy heavy, ethics heavy, but then also these are questions that people normally don't ask themselves unless they're philosophers. But if we want actually people to question their actions, their biases as engineers, creating those policies that are going to become a group's economy, like in tech, we're saying, yeah, your economy, your parameters, right? You have to come and be interested or help us solve this challenge. And this is just the techie tech community that we want to have participating in that decision making so that the economy and its parameters and how it's deployed is legitimate, right? Think about now, like the all of the projects that I tried, and now I realize it's just the gap is so huge. We need to, you know, how do you call it? Bite what we can chew. Now imagine all of this godlike technology put into uh, um, smart microgrids. You know, if you just think about the technology side of it, everything checks out. And that was my how do you call it, Achilles heel almost all the time. Is it makes sense technologically, it is possible, we can automate all the things and everyone has access to free electricity, right? But then the people side and their environments, and basically that we are coming up with some automation of their utility infrastructure, which isn't just, you know, documents or knowledge, it's really electricity. And in places where they will get electricity for the first time, that is a huge responsibility. And once you see that, it cannot be unseen. And that's why you know, I was actually super happy to have the opportunity to dig so deep into the ethics and philosophy of it. And I must say, the gap is still huge. So how are we going to actually make those questions askable to people who are firefighting out there, right? That they actually are interested in, I never asked myself that, maybe I should. Even if we get there, it would be super cool. But these are such fundamental questions that actually trigger one to, yeah, understand that there are really, really fundamental things that we don't reflect upon if we are only improving KPIs and parameters. And this is where, for example, coming from a corporate world, I had never learned anything else, right? And these rabbit hole tokens and token engineering finally got me into these. And I can tell, like, these are things that software developers also concern themselves with. But now that they do have this godlike technology, they must, right? Because again, if they are super good engineers and they have worked well with the community, they're going to create those token economies, of course, in teams and in decentralized manner, but the effects and ramifications of their simple algorithmic decisions are going to affect communities' lives depending on what it is embedded in. You know, if it's just digital games, it's fine, right? Or if it's even DeFi is like a finance game. and if you lose, you lose. You knew it. Do your own research. So this is what people tell each other. But if we want to actually bring these token economies to infrastructures and make those full equitable as well, then we need to really ask ourselves. So these set of questions again are super hard, and I still struggle. And I know, for example, if you ask like, why is there something instead of nothing, and how did it get there? Actually, as a human being, one can ask oneself that and have fun with the answers. And actually, if myself, if you're like, oh, I don't have time for that, you're missing out on something, right? So that's fun as it is, but since we want really to get answers, maybe even back, I'm definitely a proponent of that we need to make those translations of these fundamental questions still into the domain of the people. And I thought to make this an exercise, like us token engineers, we could have a translation of that into our, like, why do we need token engineering? From which discipline did token engineering start from? Everyone has their own answers here, like some will say cybernetics and some others. So I think we will have some nice answers, but at the same time, I went through and I need Fabian's input a bit more. But also, if you're interested, would be super cool, especially if you also are interested to look through these more fundamental questions and maybe give some feedback or some help also. So I'm trying to figure that out still, how we could translate it to token engineers, and basically, to their or of whom we know, to their lingo, so it doesn't sound only philosophical. And the other thing is what is interesting in this exercise of getting those philosophical questions that will hopefully trigger some answers about ethos and ethics in the token engineering community as is. We can also translate them with this 4 quadrants that Regis mentioned. I don't know if you remember, yeah, but basically that we are always feeling and making decisions in these 4 quadrants. The individual subjective, then my behavior, what is objectively visible, what can be accounted for even, right? Then the cultural values. When I'm in token engineering community, other values might be in the forefront than when I'm in another community, but they are all still my values. But they differ in what type of V I am currently active. And maybe they don't differ much because maybe if one of my values is really unflexible and I'm just that. For example, maybe I don't roam through very different communities that can have very different values. And then so the systems, all the structures and systems we live and operate in the environment. So these are the 2 templates, and from that I'm trying to get to questions that are insightful to get a feel of the ethos that exists, and then also that dig a level or 2 deeper, that even when people didn't have those questions, that basically they start to ask themselves, and maybe for the first time, or maybe they're super happy that finally they can take time and answer those won't happen, but maybe some of them give longer answers, etc. So this is what I'm hoping for, these 3 parts. And if you can also give more feedback to that, Livia, that would be super interesting. And I'll share that. And basically, there's just one practical aspect I had in my mind is, how do we keep this up? I think I will ask for someone to actually help with the organizational stuff. Maybe some newer member in the token engineering community who might be interested and who has data science background or would love to organize the questions or questionnaire. Yeah, or if you know someone who might be interested, or yeah, that's what I had in my mind.
These questions are in the proposal working group Omega, right?
Not yet. So that's what I just shared. I'll share the link, but it's still rudimentary, but nonetheless, I think. 1 second. So this is the link, and maybe I'll share this one with you because I'd like to have some feedback on the bigger questions as well. But what I would love to share with the people who have participated in those exploratory works right now, until now, the questions from last time, intrinsic motivations, then the questions today that we talked about from the experience with Token Engineering Commons. And, if you want to start that part in this proposal document already, please go ahead, or I'll add some. And the third questions are those ethical, philosophical questions we want to get onto. I would only take those translations to the proposal document. And maybe we also should aim for not 30 questions, but fewer, right? And the goal should be, get those questions now together, ask the participants to give input, improve the questions, maybe reformulate so they're not leading or anything, and then put them into a forms, right? And basically send it out to everyone we know who are currently active, and maybe also just broadly disseminate and see what comes around. We're also currently, a lot of people, a few at the very least, are in kernel of the Gitcoin community. We can ask, share there as well. I think there will be some returns, definitely, because this is what, for example, the past or this week's topic is token mechanism design. So maybe it's a good time to distribute those questions now. Have you considered?
Yeah, I love philosophical questions and having the space to ask people that, because I feel like a lot of people don't even consider. But I think it would also be great to have some more specific questions to focus and ground the body of questions, and maybe leave them optional in the type form so people can answer like as many questions as they want and submit. It doesn't need to be them required, because then we even get a feeling of like what people feel more comfortable answering or not. And yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot also. I was watching this talk yesterday that talks about how we are in obsessively extrovert society, and how this affects like everything and ultimately the systems we live in. And that's why attention is so needed, and everyone is fighting for attention, because everything wants to capture you out of yourself, right? Like It's this like, and the people that are more funny, loud, aggressive, like all of this extrovert qualities are more seen in this moment, and how this is affecting deeply like our relationship with the self and with the things that are meaningful to us. And this touches in the intrinsic motivation as well, of like how the inner world has been so neglected. So I was thinking, like, how could we start offering this balance in the economy too? What would an economy that it's not only extrovert would look like? Like, if we look inside, what are the things that would come out? Like, if we had more of a balance in this in and out. So this might be interesting to ask.
Yeah, and that also, I think that will go in the part of those intrinsic motivations, or maybe I just put it there because this is exactly what the invisible economy and the people there are basically arguing, you know. Yes, of course, it's good to find information and find the things that you're looking for, and a ranking mechanism seems practical, but that has this, if it's just one-sided or if it only ranks one way, then you just don't see the things that don't surface, don't become popular, and so on and so forth. And then if people know that mechanism, again, like you're becoming that, oh, I have to be loud, I have to be seen, I have to, so you are basically optimizing to this, it's the system and its rules. If you know them, you're basically optimizing to that. I'm wondering, so what you said was, so those people are engineering token economies, and whether they know they can actually care for that balance as well, that not only the ones who are super extroverts get to decide or get to design or get to participate, but actually it is more balanced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tough questions.
Yeah, but it's really good to ask them.
Exactly. That's what I liked what Jess said last time. Literally, you know, even maybe reading those questions could be, you know, if they at first don't have an answer or said uninteresting, or it still is going to, you know, be processed, and maybe that awareness is even enough to get them excited or interested about this token engineering community who cares about those balanced and diverse views and so on. So I think that's really something we can yeah, we can cultivate, because as I said, I've never been in such a diverse environment ever before, and I don't see it that much either. For example, in the invisible economy, again, it's also the other way around. Like people come in with other, let's say, more mainstream. No one has mainstream opinions here in crypto, but like the more mainstream crypto opinion. So when they come in, you can see that they're uneasy, because you know on the other side there's this again, there's this you know, being radical and not going for the obvious, etc. Again, it's so I think that invisible economy in that part, the practical side, again, could also benefit from a balance when it really wants to be you know, considered by interested people, or when you come in, you're like, okay, these are just too radical, I'm just gonna go away. So that's the current thing. So that balance is important, and yeah. we can at the very least ask for it, but I think also it's something we need to actively take care that we keep it, that we cultivate it more. So that's definitely one of those, if I would put those invisible values of out there, diversity is definitely one. You don't see that often either. So we're lucky that we have it, and if we can really take care of that and maybe make it accessible to others as well, that is really something special.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is Optimus, you're so quiet there. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I just got distracted right now. I had a delivery, but overall the conversation, was been great. Yeah, I really love this of the ethical engineering, and I think all these questions, as Libby said, must be, if not answered, but listen and thinking about it, and I think that's awesome. I really love the discussion, even if I didn't participate.
Cool. Okay. No, thank you. Then basically, yeah, I'll put together those questions, and if you can add, the ones that we discussed with respect to tech and that you had in mind, if you can add them, I think from today we can already have the starting point and circulate. And I will find, a bit more support. I don't know if both of you can also, now that you've heard what's in it, that we find someone who might be interested in, helping with the answers, going through the answers, who's also interested in the content of it. And then basically help can sort before, we can then do the analysis with Michael and everyone, but I think there will be a lot of sorting and coordinating that needs to be done, and I realize that I'm like Stack Overflow. Yeah, it's I took some more work, which I'm super excited about, but that wasn't planned. And but at the same time, I am also super happy that we started this working group. And at the very least, we're going to uncover some insights that are going to be helpful for the other and for the community as well. And then still hoping that we get the other members active and involved, that this thing self-organizes it as well. But I think at first we need some people or someone more who could be helping with the operational and coordination part of this whole community survey. So
Yeah, absolutely. Do you consider moving to Discord? I think more people would jump in if we have the call there.
In Discord, okay.
Because it could be more focused, perhaps, to have on Google Meets, because then only the people that know about it would join. But it's also cool to have it open. People can drop in and.
Okay, we'll do. I think that was just because of, or mostly because of Alberto, but I'll just ask him to get comfortable with Discord, and then we can do that. Okay, cool. And then we keep every 2 weeks, but I think in the next 2 weeks we can asynchronously finish that question list and make it that we can distribute. I mean, if we could make that rather quickly, have a first round of distribution, as said in the kernel community as well, I think we will have a lot more turnout.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So we can work on it this week, and then next week we talk to maybe make the form and then pass it around.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Livia, Septimus, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you.
Take good care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.